Last week we had an overheating issue with our new to us dinghy motor. This week I tear into it and see if I can get her running again. This is Sailboat Living with SailAway.
Tomorrow's never promised, but now is the time for change that starts today. Whoa.
Okay, well, I am back here in the garage working on this motor. So I've got her mounted up on my little makeshift motor stand here. It's not the most stable, but it's doing the trick. Just a little quick recap. When you don't have water flow in a small outboard, there's two things that are the most obvious solutions. The biggest one is the impeller, and then the other thing would be just seaweed or junk just clogging up the intake here. Now, there was nothing like that we could see. Took it apart, and that is where the impeller resides, which it's inside. It's just completely obliterated. It's destroyed. So the bad part about that is when an impeller falls apart like that, you can get pieces of it sucked into the system. However, the other thing I discovered was that there's a part missing. Sitting on top of this, there should be a little black rubber fitting, and that fitting, there's no way I'm going to be able to show this clearly. That tube is the metal tube that the water runs up to, right there in the middle. It's much smaller in diameter than this. So that rubber fitting that's on there is intended to marry these parts together with a seal, so that the water, when it's pumped, is forced up into the tube. Well, that part's missing, because without that part, there's absolutely no way the water coming through the pump is going to get forced up into that tube. No way, without that seal. And so, good news for me is that all those little tiny pieces of the obliterated impeller can't be in our water system. I don't know how they would have gotten out, but there's just no way they went up into the system, because there was no seal forcing the water up into the tube. That's the theory I'm operating on, and I'm going to go find that part and the impeller and put it together and fire it up, see what happens. Yeah, we got this rental mostly so I'd have a place for my studio, but it's turning into a boat motor workshop. Anyway, I got the parts that I needed, but they were cheap. I wound up getting a whole new pump, which is basically a pump service kit for like 20 bucks. So I've got a new impeller, new pump, and all the little pieces and parts that go to the pump, including this bad boy, which was what I spoke about before being missing from the top of that. I'm gonna put all this stuff back together, and I'll show you how it goes back together, and then we'll put a bucket or something under this prop with some water in it, fire the sucker up, see what happens. Well, we've got all of our parts laid out here, and the only thing that's a little weird, this pin is supposed to sit through the shaft, and then the impeller locks down onto that. You can see the impeller's got a little notch right there. Okay, well, that's the pin they gave me, and that's the old pin. So yeah, something's off there. Obviously, I'm going to use this one. Everything else looks like it matches up perfectly, so we're going to keep our fingers crossed that everything works the way it's supposed to. So this base plate slides on like that, and you'll see right there is the hole that our pin goes into. So you just push that down until it locks in place over top of that pin, and pins the base plate down as well. Alright, so you see this little tin insert that goes into the pump. We'll slide that on next. And now we will move these teeth around, these fins I should say, until they fit inside there. Got that down over top of the impeller. Next we have our gasket, and then the pump over top of all that, like so. And that's the entire pump assembly right there. Hope this thing runs after all this. Kind of sucks when we just bought the motor. I have to do this right away. Cool. And then the last very important piece is this thing, which is what was missing before. And you can see it's got two little ears that go into these holes. Alright, so hopefully next time this operation takes place, this thing won't go flying off and get lost. Alright, next step is to put this bad boy back up into the motor. We've got a couple connections, well I guess really just one, right up here where the linkage right here connects. And so I got to get that to line up, and also get the pump input tube to line up as well. So fun fact, nothing you ever do involving a boat is easy. So anyway, came across a couple issues. One, I found that by tipping the motor back like this, it's much easier to get the shaft to align up in the head. I still have not gotten it all the way in, but I also discovered that it's best to use a little pair of vice grips here to lock this sliding nut for the linkage. I was getting everything lined up, but it was shoving that thing all the way up into the shaft, and then there's no way to get a hold of it to crank it down once you get everything in and lined up. So we're going to try this again. I'll make sure we got everything in reverse, because there's no way to change that once it's in. Wish me luck. All the way down to reverse. Okay, just make sure that's nice and tight. 2 bolts, one on the top, one on the bottom. Alright, I'm going to test the linkage, see if everything still works. Give me a sec and I'm going to get this thing organized for a test run. Let's hope this goes a little smoother than the reassembly. I need to get my producer out here to run camera.
Yeah.
You're not pointed at anything.
I'm not a very good producer. Got a nice bucket of water to try it out in.
Yeah. Got to make sure if you're going to do this, make sure you fill it up high enough that the intake is below water. Which I had to fill it up really full to get it up that high. Alright, let's see what happens. So,
it's slightly a bad position.
It's not the most stable. Make sure I get enough. Ow.
Ow!
Yes, ow, you're right.
Like ow!
buddy. That makes me feel good.
Where'd that go? Oh.
Well, there you have it. I'm going to take this motor to the boat, get it hooked on the rail, out of our way,
Oh.
and thank you, office rental home, for being a motor shop for a while. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and by all means comment. Cheers. Thanks for watching.
Who says you can run? Life is supposed to be fun.